Hello, it's Darrell Gunter with Leadership Begins With You. I'm so pleased to have as our in-studio guest a dear friend and colleague of mine, Mr. Sol Rosenberg, who is the Chief Commercial Officer for Underline Science. And Saul, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's this we've been talking about this for a while. I'm glad we finally did it. So
I know
great.
you finally feel that my program is good enough for Underline. But Saul, let's jump right in. Could you share with our audience a little bit? First, let's talk a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we'll jump into what Underline does, and then we'll jump into this hypothesis that you have that I happen to agree with, and that is why should people record their conference? And you actually have put together a guide to boosting revenue and reach. But before we jump into that, share with our audience, introduce yourself to
Well, if you agree with it, it's not a hypothesis. So,
them.
but be that as it may, thank you very much for the opportunity. Great to be with you as always. We always have a good time together, and I appreciate being able to be your colleague and being able to know you for a long time. Similarly, I've been in publishing and also in academic publishing for a long time, working with all sorts of publishers and in the academic space for in university and journals for a long time. And then a few years ago, a former robotic scientist had this tremendous idea. You know how conferences are the lifeblood of many industries and how researchers get ahead. I mean, this is how they publish, right? They can either publish in a journal, but for many industries like AI and some others, really not so much journals as it is going to conferences. So whether it's linguistics or so many or neuroscience or so many other fields of research, getting their papers accepted at a conference and presenting there is the thing. So thousands of researchers go to these thousands of conferences every year, and until a few years ago, people were not recording the conference. So after the conference, people went home, and sure, there was a printed proceedings with all the papers, and that was wonderful and searchable and online and all great. However, to get through all that, it takes time because you have to read the papers in the abstract. It takes a while to go through a paper and understand it. But even more importantly, none of the discourse was there. First of all, none of the keynotes, right? And none of the stuff that happened, none of the back and forth. So this former robotic scientist said, this is kind of crazy. I mean, we live in a, YouTube and TikTok world. Why don't we preserve it? Why don't we make a platform, just like there's a journal platform, a video platform? And hence the idea of Underline began. It was one of those light bulb moments when he pitched it to me. I said, duh, how come I didn't think of it? It's so obvious, right? This is obvious big hole in the market that you can drive a tractor trailer through. And so we began. And then it was the pandemic, so we did a lot virtual. And then that's really what helped a lot of people understand that you could do not only virtual, but that there was this value in recording. And then afterwards, we started doing hybrid conferences. And now, of course, we're doing almost all physical conferences, except for recently after the travel situation in America, where a number of conferences are moving either more to hybrid or recording, or some of them have gone virtual due to the funding cuts from NIH and other places. I've had some organizers tell me that next year they're going to be virtual because they just do not have the funding to go physical. But be that as it may, that's the quick background. And what happened was when we did do a lot of virtual conferences, people understood that, of course, it's virtual and it gets recorded because why not? And then after sort of started realizing the benefits, but where we saw the benefits was in terms of stats. Okay, we saw the engagement in a conference, and it's very interesting that we built a platform that allows for very, very deep engagement with a conference. So it's not just like a YouTube channel with some videos up there, which is fine, but being able to have the video and the paper and the poster and questions and discourse and slides all in one place with this one thing that I like to call a container with it all there. And I don't, can I share screens and show
Absolutely.
how
You
this
certainly can. Mhm.
Okay, so let me do that. And this wonderful container that we have, give me a moment to share. And you see that everything here is in one space. You've got the paper and the video and the abstract and download the slides, etc. And you can collaborate. And we saw in terms of the stats that people were interacting with these more so in the year or two or even longer after the conference than during the conference itself. And that gave rise to the understanding that there are many people that, for one reason or another, won't be at your conference. Now, certainly we understand that we would like to have people in the conference. We'd like to have seats and chairs, right? It helps us with our with the conference. We have to pay for it somehow, right? We pay for it by people being there. Empty chairs does not pay for the conference. So we need people there, obviously. But there are people who won't be able to come. Now, they may not come because of schedule. They may not come because of funding. They may not be come for a variety of other reasons that can't make it. Or, as I said, the recent change in border procedures in America, where people are from America are sometimes scared to leave because they're worried about getting back, and all kinds of other such things. So there will be X number of people who can't make it for one reason or another. Why shut them out? Why not make it available to them? And not just in terms of altruistic, but even from a very, very simple profit motive. In other words, if you took a percentage of people that were at your conference and said, okay, if 20% of people who are at my conference couldn't make it, or 30%, and if I were to charge them 20, 30% of what I would normally charge for a conference, because they're not coming, they're not, I'm not giving them as much services, what would that look like in terms of dollars? So, I mean, you can play with the numbers, but just as a very simple, if you had, let's say, 300 people, if you had a large conference of 1,000 people and 300 people who could, let's say, couldn't make it, and you charge them instead of $1,000 or $800 for the conference, only $300, that's 90,000 gross top line that would come to your bottom line. If you change those numbers and put it in half, right, 150 people at $150, it's still 45,000. Those are big numbers, and that's money that you're leaving on the table, right? That's money that could go to your bottom line. Recording a conference is only a fraction of that cost. And one of the things that we've done recently is start putting together a program where we can very effectively record a conference for a low cost. So this is all we do. All we do are scientific conferences, and we've done like over by now we've done over 400 conferences, and we do a lot of AV, and this is our specialty. And now we've realized that maybe conferences have the rest of it set up, but the recording part they're not doing. And we've come up with a very good way where they can record the conference inexpensively. So whether it's 40,000 gross or 90,000 gross or whatever your assumptions are, recording a conference will only be a small fraction of that because we know how to do it in a very cost-effective manner. And besides the cost,
Allow me to interject. You talk
go ahead.
about revenue crisis.
Mhm.
Tell us about the revenue crisis that you feel that the conference industry is facing, and how does Underline's solution address that financial crisis?
Well, figure that if you had a conference where you're, an average size conference, 400 to 500 people, and you're charging, let's say, an average of $795 to come to the conference. All right, so that's top line of a close to $400,000 in conference registrations. Plus, you put some sponsorships. That pays for pretty much your costs. What happens all of a sudden if that goes down 10 or 20% in terms of, for all these reasons we mentioned before, people not able to come? Scientific societies, for the most part, except for the few largest conferences, but for the most part, they're running on very thin margins. They're running on just being able to put on the conference and be in the black, not sitting here with tons and tons of extra cash that they can worry about. So if you have a drop of 10, 20, 30%, whatever the number might be, and we are hearing this from conference organizers that people are worried, whether it's the funding cuts or the travel situation that has changed. that will they come? Are they able to come? We know large military conferences or anybody related to the military that have been cut. We have other conferences that were dependent. There was a STEM conference called Understanding Interventions that would draw about 600 people. They are not sure they're able to get the funding this year. They're going to need to do something virtual. And this is just two anecdotal examples of many, and some see reductions of 10 or 20%, and some see more drastic cuts. But either which way, it's a concern. So in good days, this would be great to bolster your revenue. Today, it's almost a requirement to be able to make sure that you're cash positive. But Darrell, if I may, I'd like to also take this to another level. And if you go to, we have the site underlinerecording.info, um, and we put together 21 reasons for you to record your conference. And it's not travel restrictions and also the reach. If you have 400 or 500 people coming to your island in some beautiful sunny island in Greece or somewhere, right? Some Mamma Mia type island, and having a great time for your conference, it's all wonderful. But that's 400 out probably two or three times that of people who would love to come, students and others, people who would be important contributors to your society and to your organization that you've essentially frozen out from a cost perspective. So what do you do? How do you service them? Is there a way you can get to them? Is there a way you can bring them in to your community without sacrificing your conference and without spending a lot of money? So the solution that we're proposing is not only do you not spend money, but it will be certainly not just cost effective in terms of paying for itself, but it'll become a profit center according to any calculation and any supposition that you take in terms of adding the recording and using our platform. And also it will allow you to expand your community and bring all these other people in to be able to be part of it in ways that they couldn't before.
So, Saul, the societies, the scholarly publishing societies, except for the big ones, have been, as you mentioned earlier, have been really struggling to stay afloat, and also getting access to for their members to get access to this content is equally as important. In your opinion, how does Underline help them to solve both of those issues?
Thank you. I appreciate the softball question. But
Real
look,
question.
no, it's obvious. Okay, here's a way for for societies to be engaged with their membership on a year-round basis. I've had a researcher, an AI researcher at a large conference say to me, "What does the society do for me? I come to the conference once a year and I'm a fellow and I'm a this and I'm a that. And what happens the other 11 months, right? 11 and a half months. What do they really do for me?" Here's another way for you to really do for them as a society all year round, to give them something where no matter what month it is, they have a reason to be part of, to be there, to be with you, and whether they and also to be able to engage with them. Now, the other part, in terms of the other question you asked, you end up with another publication, which is a citable digital archive, and by the way, it links back to your main journal. So every talk can get its own DOI and link back to your main journal. So it becomes a traffic driver because it's all Google searchable and we have it available and indexed. So it can certainly be a traffic driver and allow for new revenue streams. Did I answer your question or did I miss something?
You
Okay, thanks.
you did. And I'm sure this is nothing new, but what are the reasons why the scholarly publishing community have been hesitant to record their conferences? I mean, you got SPIE out there that's been doing it for quite some time. What are your thoughts about that?
Great question. And I think that's because an SPIE is great, but they're an outlier. Okay. Yes, there are a few that do it, and we have a number of very good clients, but for the most part, they're outliers. I mean, because there's what, tens of thousands of conferences, and 90+% have not been recording and have not been preserving. Part of the reason is because we've never done it, and we've always done it the old-fashioned way, and because in publishing everything moves slowly. So yeah, people are just not changing unless they're being forced to change. So, when it was the pandemic, they had no choice. They had to be virtual, right? So there wasn't nothing there. But now, hopefully, and this is why I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this and make this available, and a topic of interest to the broader community, video is an important part of the academic record. Video is, in essence, the new publishing.
Hmm.
Today, people are going to videos more so than reading long form articles. Not having video as part of how you publish is a problem, in my opinion, for scientific societies. It is something they're overlooking. So I think that to certainly be part of what societies do. Now, but even, I wasn't even making that larger argument, because I was more talking about just from a recording perspective, just from an inclusion perspective. That's certainly important. Certainly strategically, SPIE recognizes this, and so does AAAI and ACL and a number of other large societies whom we have been privileged to service. But for the most part, and you don't have to be a large society. And we're talking about small societies. If you have a 400 person conference, even 200-person conference, don't be forced into a situation where, oh my gosh, people aren't coming, and now what do I do? And now it's an emergency situation. You should be proactive about this, in our opinion. You can do this in a way where it's not costing you any money at all. In fact, we offer a service we call AV Plus, where we'll do all your audio visual, which is, by the way, the second largest expense after food and beverage. And we'll do it for less than you'd pay somewhere else, and we'll include the recording and all part of it. And this is why many scientific societies have opted to use us. But even if you don't use us for your AV, if you're just using us for recording, that's absolutely fine. And as I said, we've developed, if you go to underlinerecording.info, 21 reasons why you should think about it. And hopefully that will start getting you thinking of where you need to be strategically. Because remember, what is the mission of a scientific society? The mission is to promote the advancement of learning and scholarship in your field, to publish, i.e., disseminate, to make public, right, the application and results of this academic inquiry and research. Well, that's wonderful, right? But if it's only available to the 400 people who were there at your conference, and the few others that'll take the time to actually go through a long form paper, that's not a lot of publishing. Right. But today, people, I mean, how much time do people spend on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and watching this video and that video? And this is where, just like it is by the general consumer population, it's the same way researchers, they're no different, especially younger researchers, right? So not just us who've been around a while, but certainly the younger society, that's all they're doing all day long. In a second, they'll go and look at a 5-minute video of a paper that will get them to understand what this person is talking about and what the gist is, and then we'll let them know, hey, this is interesting. Should I go look for the paper? Excuse me. And then should I really look at this in greater detail? Does this have relevance to me? Is this a collaboration that I can do? And we have not just the analytics to share, but also the anecdotal evidence where people tell us that, hey, we were able to start collaborations with people that were tangential of research that I would never even have found had I just done a search. I'm looking for whatever keywords, and this was a little bit off to the left, but guess what? I was browsing and I was doom scrolling, and there it was, and wow, this is interesting. And I went down that rabbit hole, and it ended up being something that was even better than I would have thought. And that happens, excuse me, with us day in, day out. We're very fortunate to have over 55,000 videos in our library now. And it's something that many, many societies are enjoying.
So walk us through what you feel is the revenue opportunity. In our re review before we, our discussion before we have this actual interview, you had shared with me a financial example. Can you share that with our
Oh,
listeners?
absolutely. I'll be happy to. In fact, here, let me do something very simple. It's not a very complicated uh, financial example, and you can decide to do whatever assumptions you feel comfortable doing. How many people do you think will watch your stuff after the fact? How many people will attend or will buy some access to your conference virtually because they couldn't be there in person? 100, 200, 300, 500, pick a number. Okay, let's say 250. At what price? Okay, if your regular conference is 795, can you charge 295? Can you charge 199? What number do you think you can charge? And you'll see your total. And even if you can only charge 199, even if you only think it's 150 people, these are real numbers. And it's not going to cost you. Now, here's the thing. It's not going to cost you $29,000 to do this. Okay. If you have 150 people that you think will do it after the fact, that's usually that you're having what, 400 people at your conference. And just to give you an idea of just the way we do things, okay, we have, we come, and by the way, this is inclusive of the people and the equipment, and all told, there's no other costs. And they're focused on your event, and we'll do a high quality recording and edited files and all of that. But if you take a look at what it might cost, I mean, if you had a 3-room conference with 3 parallel rooms for 3 days, that's only $9,600, right? And we were talking about a lot more than that in whatever assumption you may have for how many people may show up, may purchases after the fact. So this is an example of the not not just the possibilities for revenue in whatever assumptions you may have, really not
So,
expensive.
Saul, in this recording, but is it streamed live as well?
No. So streaming live needs a little bit more equipment and needs more coordination with the local AV people. And there's some more stuff that has to be done. So if we as Underline, excuse me, if we as Underline are actually doing your conference, we'll bring the equipment and we know how to do it, and we can do it for about, as I said, do all your AV and include the streaming. But if you have someone else doing it and we're just doing the recording, that's sort of the least expensive way of doing it. But frankly, for those who are worried or skittish or something, this is the best way to get started, because I call this the on-demand conference, where this is a situation where people who want to be there will be there. No one who says, "Oh, it's available virtually. Okay, so maybe I won't come." It'll put the people, bodies in chairs, right? So you'll get the people coming. It will not cannibalize your regular attendance. But now it's for everybody else. So we record it, and during the conference, there's actually nothing happening live. But let's say a week or so afterwards, then you open up the conference, and then you have a double benefit. All of those people who were at the conference will now have access. And you know how many people go to a conference and there were 2 or 3 or 4 parallel sessions, and they go to one and go, well, I really want it to be in the other one, or I want to go back and forth. And they go back and forth and they miss the talk that they wanted to see because it's never perfect timing wise. And right, it's always a little FOMO. I'm missing out on this, missing out on that. Now they can go and they can see everything, and they can contact the person and they can collaborate with the person. Okay, so that's really, really, really important. And so that's for the people who are there. And then you have the people who, after the fact, you haven't reached before. Okay, so those, 1, 2, 3, 400 people, whatever you think in terms of however you're going to do this, those people will be able to come and look and see and join afterwards. So here's a conference. In this case, these guys actually did stream it, but here was an example of an actual conference, and this is now after the fact. And this is somebody who's got a poster and their abstract, and they had a voting thing, and then you could download both the slides and view the paper, and they can find out more about the person, and they can even opt in to be emailed right all from here, and you can find out about their other presentations and see what else they've done in other conferences that we've worked with. So here's a great way to be able to interact with the people, with people that you get to know more people, to find out more about them, to start collaborations, to see what they're working on, all in one wonderful platform. And that's part of what we do is talk in terms of the actual conference itself. But the most important things we'd like you to overcome that fear of, oh, we've never done it before. Is it worth doing? From a simple cost perspective, it's more than worth doing. It'll more than pay for itself. And then the benefits beyond that of being able to include more people and be able to bring more people to your society and being able to have greater engagement with your current members, with the people who were at your conference, more so than the few days of the conference, but having to do that afterwards as well. These are things that you've never had before. So they say this thing about focus groups. So one of the problems with focus groups and a new product is if they've never seen the product, they can't focus on it because they don't know what it is, right? So similarly here, you have to try it to see what happens, but we'll show you stats of other conferences where the engagement post-conference is greater than it was during the 5 days of the conference. So
Saul, how can someone get in touch with you?
well, first they have to know you because you know everybody. But but seriously, they can go to underlinerecording.info or underline.io, and we're easily found. Also, my email is sol at underline.io. So I'm easily found, and on LinkedIn and on all over. So easy to find.
And Saul, I'm sure you have references that you can provide to your potential new client base. Who are some of the top names? I know you dropped a few earlier.
So as I said, all we do are scientific conferences. This is all we do. So IEEE and the AAAI and Association for Computational Linguistics. We do and a number of other societies. We have a longer list than this. We just put 3, 4 of the 5 of the largest societies because this is all we do. All we do all day long, day in and day out, are scientific conferences. So we're happy to share references of people who have done this. And we have lots and lots and lots of conferences of various kinds in all kinds of different disciplines of people who are working with us and have done conferences with us and keep coming back year on year. Here's the other thing, okay? Once people start working with us, they keep coming back year after year because they see the benefits, their membership sees the benefits, and I think we do a decent job, and they keep coming back. So we're happy, they're happy, and that's our goal. I mean, when we started, we decided to only do what we call white glove service, which is to delight our customers and to be able to have them be brand ambassadors and tell other people about what we do. And a lot of our business comes by referral. This is because people are so excited and say, "Oh, look, go talk to them; they'll help you out." So.
Well, Saul, I want to thank you for your time today. You've given us a lot of good information, a lot of things to think about. People can reach you at Saul at underline.io. And really appreciate you coming on the program and looking forward to seeing you at the next great conference.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Great to talk to you always. It's always a lot of fun. Appreciate
Well,
it.
ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up this week on Leadership with Darrell W. Gunter. We want to thank our guest, Sol Rosenberg, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at Underline.io. But we always want you to remember that leadership begins with you.